Victoria Ashford, 46, barely glanced up from her phone as she entered the courtroom. She had a lunch reservation at noon and expected this to be a minor inconvenience. But Judge Frank Caprio was unflinching. This was not a calendar app. This was a courtroom case 2025 TR 10847. The City of Providence versus Victoria Ashford. She faced charges for unauthorized use of a disabled parking space, destroying a citation, failing to appear on 3 separate summons notices, and contempt of court. Her attorney tried to offer a quick settlement. Caprio refused. The court was not a payment portal. Victoria had parked her luxury sedan in a disabled parking space outside the food bank on Broad Street. She had removed the citation from her windshield, torn it in quarters, and discarded it. She ignored 3 certified summons notices sent to her residence. To her, it was 10 minutes, no harm done. But harm had been done. Thomas Bennett, a disabled veteran, arrived at 9:32 a.m. for his physical therapy appointment. The blocked ramp prevented him from accessing the building on time, causing him to miss the first half of his session. Access isn't optional, and denial has consequences. Officer Leah Romano documented the violation meticulously. The destroyed citation, photographs, and body cam footage confirmed everything. Attempts by Victoria's Family Foundation to influence the court were documented. Calls and emails pushed for a quiet resolution before public proceedings. Charity, Caprio reminded, is not currency. It does not purchase immunity or ownership of public process. The court found Victoria guilty on all counts. Fines totaled $850. Half was suspended, contingent on her completion of a restorative accountability plan. Over the next 14 weeks, she wrote personal apologies to Officer Romano, and Thomas Bennett completed 200 hours of community service, split between the Rhode Island Food Bank and the Access Coalition, produced 3 public service announcements on accessibility, with no branding or foundation involvement, completed an ethical governance course on boundaries between charitable giving and public process, submitted a 1,000-word reflection on wealth and service, acknowledging her privilege and the harm it caused. By the end of the program, Victoria had internalized the lesson, service outrank status. The court confirmed her completion, noting that mercy is not a press release. It is accountability in action. Sunlight and consequences had done their work. Philanthropy could no longer shield her from responsibility. The disabled had access restored, the citations were acknowledged, and Victoria Ashford learned that wealth does not grant dominion over justice. Victoria Ashford, 46, entered the courtroom scrolling on her phone, her mind on a lunch reservation. Judge Frank Caprio didn't flinch. This was a courtroom, not a calendar app. Case 2025 TR 10847. The City of Providence versus Victoria Ashford. She faced charges for parking in a disabled space, destroying a citation, failing to appear on 3 summons notices, and contempt of court. Her attorney tried to settle with fines. Caprio refused. Justice is not for sale. On October 14th, Victoria's luxury sedan blocked an accessible space outside the food bank for 23 minutes. Officer Leah Romano documented everything, including body cam audio. Victoria had torn up the citation and claimed her family's millions funded the city, implying she could bypass rules. But charity is not currency. Attempts by Ashford Innovations to influence the court were noted. Phone calls, emails, and voicemails urging leniency based on family contributions. The court logged them all. The message was clear. Donations do not grant immunity. The real impact was immediate. Laura Bennett, mother of a 7-year-old with cerebral palsy, could not access the clinic ramp. Her daughter missed therapy, a critical session for pain management, delayed 2 weeks. Access isn't optional, it's infrastructure. Victoria's arrogance had real consequences. The evidence was undisputed. Destroyed citation, body cam audio, certified summons, and documented pressure from her family foundation. Caprio's ruling was firm. Victoria Ashford was guilty on all counts. Fines totaled $850, with $450 contingent on completing a restorative accountability plan. Over the next 14 weeks, Victoria wrote personal apologies to Officer Romano, and Laura Bennett completed 200 hours of community service at the Rhode Island Food Bank and the Access Coalition, with no press or foundation involvement. produced 3 public service announcements on accessibility, using plain language, completed an ethical governance course on the limits of charitable influence, submitted a 1000-word reflection on wealth and responsibility. By the end, Victoria understood the lesson. Service outranks status. Access matters more than donations. Privilege does not grant dominion over justice. Accountability, not influence, defines fairness. The courtroom had spoken, and sunlight had done its work. Victoria Ashford's face flushed with defiance. "I own you people. I'll end your career," she spat. 12 seconds of arrogance, the sound of wealth confronting its limits. Caprio's calm voice cut through it. "You own nothing here but your choices. Status is not a shield, it's a test." She had failed. By 11:19 a.m., Caprio had reviewed the evidence. Body cam audio confirmed she had invoked her family's donations to intimidate. She destroyed city property, ignored 3 certified summons, and tried to influence the court through intermediaries. Money funds projects. It doesn't fund privilege, he reminded. The verdict was decisive, guilty on all counts. Base fine $750. But $400 was stayed, contingent on a restorative accountability plan. Personal apologies to Officer Romano and Laura Bennett. No form letters. Real accountability. 150 hours of community service. 75 at the food bank. 75 at the Mobility Access Coalition. 2 public service announcements. 1 on access equity. 1 on donor ethics. Court approved. Completion of a municipal ethics training module on philanthropy influence. A 900-word reflection essay on money versus authority. Submitted to the court. Additionally, $200 went to the Disabled Parking Enforcement Fund. Non-negotiable. Caprio looked directly at her. Completing the terms within 90 days would keep $400 off her record. Fail, and the full fine applied, with contempt revisited. Mercy, he said, is not a discount. It's a contract. Accountability had replaced entitlement. Victoria Ashford glanced at her phone, lunch reservation waiting. The courtroom didn't care. By 11:30 a.m., her charges were clear. Unauthorized use of a disabled space, destroying a citation, ignoring 3 summons, contempt. Her attorney offered to pay. Caprio refused. Money wasn't the lesson. Her car had blocked a ramp for a 7-year-old with cerebral palsy. 10 minutes, she claimed. That delay cost therapy. Access isn't optional. It's infrastructure. Body cam audio confirmed her words. My family funds this city. Attempts to influence the court through calls, emails, and voicemails were documented. Money funds projects. It doesn't fund privilege. Guilty on all counts. Base fine $750, $400 stayed contingent on restorative accountability. Apologies to Officer Romano and Laura Bennett. 150 community service hours, 2 PSAs on access equity and donor ethics, ethics training, and a 900-word reflection essay. $200 went to the Disabled Parking Fund. Mercy is a contract, not a discount. Victoria spent weeks completing each requirement. Apologies rewritten until genuine. Service logged quietly at the Food Bank and Mobility Access Coalition. PSAs rewritten until they were personal. The essay arrived early. Authority doesn't come from what your family built. It comes from what you repair. By January 16th, she returned alone. Caprio reviewed every submission. Compliance confirmed. $400 remitted. Record clean. He reminded her, access is not for auction. Every blue and white sign is a lesson learned. The court's reforms followed. Weekly ex parte influence logs, donor firewalls, and a 10-minute tow policy for block spaces. Violations dropped 63%. Victoria's PSAs aired and were adopted statewide. She left with no press, no fanfare, just a lesson etched in accountability. Privilege, when tested, either transforms or fades. In Providence, justice still moves at the speed of principle.